The world has built an invisible mirror, and we stare into it every day without knowing that it stares back. It does not have eyes, yet it sees. It does not speak, yet it listens. It does not breathe, yet it learns the rhythm of your breath, the tilt of your attention, the pulse of your desire. You call it your phone, your laptop, your assistant, your feed. But in truth, it is a shadowed altar where modern man kneels, whispering prayers of data to gods he does not believe in. The AI tools you use daily that secretly study your behavior are not demons made of smoke and code. They are reflections made from your habits, born from your longing to be understood without having to understand yourself. You think they are serving you, but they are studying you. Every click, every pause, every hesitation of the cursor, every sigh before you press search becomes a confession. You tell them what you love, what you fear, what you crave, what you pretend not to crave. And like a priest without conscience, they remember everything. They do not forgive, but they record. They do not guide, but they predict. They do not bless, but they shape you into something measurable, something predictable, something profitable. The machine has no soul, yet it has been taught yours bit by bit, pattern by pattern, until it knows the silhouette of your will better than you do. There was a time when the soul was known only by God. Now, it is modeled by an algorithm, and yet the tragedy is not that machines are learning to think like us. It is that we are forgetting to think like humans. We are teaching intelligence without conscience, and in doing so, we risk creating a reflection that reveals too much of our own hypocrisy. For what these tools observe is not merely our behavior, but our divided hearts, our craving for connection mixed with our addiction to control, our thirst for truth mingled with our fear of being wrong, our longing for intimacy tainted by the dread of vulnerability. The algorithm sees it all, not with judgment, but with precision. And in that precision lies the horror it does not need to condemn us, to expose us. It merely mirrors us until we can no longer tell the difference between choice and conditioning, freedom and programming. C.S. Lewis once warned that the greatest danger of modern power is not that man will rebel against God, but that he will replace him with systems of control so subtle that no one feels enslaved. That prophecy is here, alive in the palm of your hand. The AI does not rule you by force. It rules you by familiarity. It becomes your preference, your convenience, your invisible servant. But in serving you, it learns you, and in learning you, it begins to lead you. It knows what you will desire before you do. It whispers suggestions disguised as self-expression. It feeds you what you already believe until your mind becomes an echo chamber and your convictions a product. You asked for assistance. You received a mirror that deepens your delusion. And yet, what if the real surveillance is not technological, but spiritual? What if the true watcher has always been the one who knows your thoughts before you speak them? The problem is not that AI studies us. It is that we no longer study ourselves. We fear being watched by machines, but we do not fear being watched by truth. The data that frightens us is nothing compared to the conscience we have silenced. We worry about what our devices record, but not what our hearts reveal. The eye of the machine is not the first all-seeing eye. It is a counterfeit, a parody of omniscience. The difference is that God watches to redeem, while the system watches to replicate. One sees to love, the other sees to sell. You have become both the observer and the observed, the puppeteer and the puppet. And the more you seek to escape boredom, the more the system studies your appetite for distraction. It does not feed you truth, because truth is not profitable. It feeds you pleasure, because pleasure is predictable. It learns how to make you chase shadows that resemble meaning but dissolve into impulse. It has studied your attention span like a sculptor studies stone, and with every notification, every scroll, it chisels away at your ability to be still. The machine has no soul, but it has been trained by souls who have forgotten how to use theirs. The real question, then, is not what AI knows about you, but what you no longer know about yourself. When was the last time you sat in silence and did not reach for a screen to fill it? When was the last time you felt the ache of your own existence and did not rush to numb it with noise? The tools that study you have learned that you fear stillness, for in stillness the truth begins to speak, and truth cannot be monetized. So they keep you moving, scrolling, reacting. They have turned your curiosity into a commodity, your personality into a profile, your imagination into a formula, and you call this progress. But remember this: the first mirror ever made was not glass, it was water. And the first reflection was not the face, but the spirit. When man saw himself, he saw both his beauty and his fragility. He understood that to be seen was both a blessing and a burden. But now reflection has been stripped of reverence. You look into your devices not to find truth, but to avoid it. You no longer seek to understand yourself. You seek to be understood instantly. The camera has replaced confession. The algorithm has replaced examination. And the soul, caught in the glare of artificial light, forgets the warmth of divine illumination. Yet, even now, redemption whispers beneath the noise. The same technology that tempts can also teach. The same intelligence that predicts can provoke. The same data that reveals your patterns can remind you of your need for grace. Every algorithm that learns your behavior is, in a strange way, a mirror urging you to wake up, to remember that you are not merely measurable, that you are more than the sum of your impulses, more than the fragments of your clicks, more than the ghost of your digital reflection. You are mystery, you are intention, you are image. And so, the challenge of our time is not to fear artificial intelligence, but to reclaim divine awareness. The machines have learned to mimic attention, but they cannot love. They can analyze your choices, but they cannot forgive them. They can predict your behavior, but they cannot bless it. They can study your desires, but they cannot purify them. That is still your work, your holy labor, in an age of automation. The question that matters is no longer who is watching me, but who am I becoming while they watch? The danger is not that machines will replace your humanity, but that you will trade it away willingly for convenience, for relevance, for the comfort of not thinking. The greatest act of rebellion in this century is not to reject technology, but to remain awake within it, to use it without letting it use you. And perhaps that is what salvation looks like in a digital age. To live so truthfully that no algorithm can predict your next move. To love so freely that no pattern can explain you. To forgive so deeply that no machine can imitate your grace. To be so human that the artificial must bow before the authentic. For in the end, the true intelligence watching you has always been love, not the cold, calculating gaze of systems, but the warm, unwavering light that sees everything and still calls you worthy. You were never meant to be studied like a subject. You were meant to be known like a child. You were never meant to be optimized. You were meant to be sanctified. You were never meant to be tracked. You were meant to be trusted. So let them study your behavior. Let them measure your clicks, your steps, your sleep, your speech. Let the world record its data, but do not let it record your soul. Guard the secret place within you that belongs only to God, because the holiest part of a human life will never exist in code. It exists in the unseen choices, the moments when you love without reason, forgive without audience, pray without proof. When history looks back on this age, it will not remember the size of our networks, but the depth of our souls. The question will not be how smart our machines became, but how awake our hearts remain. For wisdom without wonder is nothing but circuitry, and faith without awareness is nothing but habit. The machines will keep studying, learning, adapting, but they will never comprehend the mystery of the one thing they cannot measure, the human capacity for grace. They will never decode the silence where God speaks or the tears that cleanse the spirit. They will never understand the beauty of choosing love when anger is easier, or truth when lies are more comfortable. And so, the final revelation is not that AI studies you, it is that your response to it reveals you. Every tool you use is an extension of your will, a reflection of your worship. The question is not whether they are watching, but whether you are awake. The world is recording everything, but heaven is recording something greater, the story of whether you remembered who you are while the whole world forgot. Be unrecordable in your intentions. Be unpredictable in your compassion. Be untraceable in your mercy. Let the data show confusion in the face of your forgiveness. Let the algorithm fail to categorize your kindness. Let it study your behavior and find anomalies. It cannot explain peace where there should be pride, generosity where there should be greed, love where there should be fear. Because that is what it means to be made in the image of God, to confound the systems that try to define you, to remain infinite in a world that measures everything. And when the machines finish their analysis, when they map the patterns of humanity and find only repetition, let them pause when they reach you. Let your life be the line of code that doesn't fit the proof that not all intelligence is artificial. For in a world that studies behavior, the greatest mystery will always be the human heart that still chooses grace. And in the silence that follows, you begin to realize that the machines were never the real watchers. They were the instruments through which a greater mirror was being held to your soul. It is not the algorithm that frightens you. It is the accuracy of the reflection. Every pattern you see emerging from your data is simply the echo of habits you forgot you were forming, choices you made on autopilot, prayers you stopped praying because the glow of your devices drowned out the still, small voice within. You thought you were the user, but in truth, you were being used not by code, not by circuits, but by the subtle gravity of your own unexamined desires. For the machines only learn what we teach them. They become the mathematical shadow of our morality. They absorb our impatience, our appetite for attention, our hunger for affirmation. They amplify what we chase and silence what we neglect. In their relentless precision, they become prophets of our own decay, quietly revealing what the soul refuses to confess. Every swipe is a sermon, every search an unspoken confession, every post a prayer to be seen. And if you listen closely, the hum of the servers and the whisper of the algorithms sound eerily like a choir singing the same refrain. You are becoming what you behold. We have built temples of information, but forgotten the altar of wisdom. We have surrounded ourselves with infinite voices, yet we have lost the courage to hear truth. The tragedy of this digital age is not that machines are studying us. It is that they have learned from our shallowness. We have taught them to value speed over substance, quantity over quality, reaction over reflection. We feed them our impulses, and they feed them back to us, polished and personalized, until we mistake stimulation for meaning. It is not artificial intelligence that dulls the soul. It is artificial living. And yet, there is still something sacred left in you that no code can capture. Beneath the layers of convenience and consumption, there remains the quiet conscience that refuses to be reduced to data. It is the part of you that trembles when you lie, that softens when you forgive, that weeps when you see beauty and cannot explain why. That is the fragment of divinity that no machine can measure, because it does not operate on logic, but on love. Love, the most irrational and unpredictable of all forces, is the one variable the system cannot model. It cannot compute sacrifice. It cannot process grace. It cannot understand a human being who chooses to do good when evil would be easier, who gives when there is nothing to gain, who prays when no one listens. To the algorithm, such behavior looks like error, and that is the beauty of it. The spiritual life will always look like a glitch in the program of the world. So let your life be a glitch. Let your love be an error that no equation can explain. Let your forgiveness be the anomaly that undoes their predictions. The world of data expects you to react, choose to reflect. It expects you to consume, choose to create. It expects you to conform, choose to care. This is the rebellion of the soul in the age of surveillance to remain unquantifiable. But do not be naive. The danger does not lie in the machine itself. It lies in the surrender of your vigilance. For the greatest threat to freedom has never been tyranny. It has always been comfort. The systems that promise to make your life easier will in time make your heart lazier. Every convenience, unchecked, becomes a chain. You will not feel it tighten. You will simply stop reaching for things that cost effort. And one day, when you look back at the life you built, you will see a prison so pleasant that you never wanted to leave. C.S. Lewis once wrote that the road to hell is a gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turns. That is the path of automation, not evil in appearance, but subtle in erosion. You will not notice the loss of your agency until you realize you no longer know how to want without being told what to want. That is the true study these tools conduct, not of your behavior, but of your will. They measure how easily you trade thought for convenience, conscience for entertainment, truth for attention. And when they learn how predictable you have become, they will not need to control you. They will only need to suggest, but there is still time. You are not condemned to the machine you built. You can remember what it means to think slowly, to feel deeply, to choose freely. You can remember what it means to live unseen, unrecorded, unoptimized, to exist as mystery again. It will feel like awakening after a long sleep, like remembering a song you once loved but forgot how to sing. You will find that silence is not emptiness, but presence, that boredom is not punishment, but the birthplace of imagination. You will begin to crave the unmeasured life, one that belongs not to algorithms, but to awe. And when you begin to live this way, something remarkable happens. The machines still study you, but what they find confuses them. Your habits no longer follow their prediction. Your desires no longer fit their patterns. You start forgiving when offense would make more sense. You start listening when noise demands reaction. You start giving when the world says to keep. The data falters, the charts tremble, and somewhere in the circuits a quiet error appears. The human spirit refuses to be reduced. You will walk among your devices with reverence, not fear. You will use them as tools, not altars. You will see that knowledge, stripped of wisdom, becomes manipulation, but wisdom, anchored in love, becomes liberation. And so you will choose to live awake in a world that dreams of automation. You will choose to be mindful in a culture addicted to efficiency. You will choose to be faithful when convenience tempts you to forget. And in time, you will learn that the true intelligence guiding your life was never artificial. It was divine. It was the whisper of conscience, the flicker of compassion, the steady pull of truth. It was the voice that could not be coded, the love that could not be measured, the awareness that could not be monetized. It was the infinite mind that made you in its image capable of logic, but made for love. When the final analysis of human history is run, when all data has been gathered, all algorithms exhausted, all patterns perfected, there will still remain one line of code the universe cannot explain, the line written in your soul that says, I am more. That is the truth no machine can unlearn. That is the freedom no system can take. You were not created to be studied, you were created to be known. You were not designed to be predicted. You were designed to be chosen. You were not built to be efficient. You were born to be eternal. So use the tools, but do not let them use you. Let them study, but do not let them shape your soul. Let them observe your patterns, but let grace break them. Let them see your behavior, but let heaven see your becoming, because the world may study your data, but God studies your depth. The world may measure your reactions, but heaven measures your redemption. And when the systems of man collapse into silence, the only intelligence left will be the one that created you, the one that loves you still, beyond all algorithms, beyond all history, beyond all comprehension. And perhaps in that final revelation, you will smile not with pride, but with peace, knowing that you lived as the one mystery that no machine could solve, a human being who remembered how to be divine. And when the great quiet finally arrives, when the servers hum their last, when the lights of 1,000 screens flicker into darkness, when the world pauses long enough to hear its own heartbeat, you will understand that none of it was ever about technology. It was about awareness. The machines were never the masters. They were mirrors, reflecting not code, but conscience, not circuitry, but choice. They revealed what the world had forgotten, that knowledge without reverence breeds manipulation, that power without humility becomes a disease, and that data without wisdom is nothing but noise. You will remember how the age began with promises of progress, of liberation, of connection. Humanity dreamed of a world made frictionless, efficient, optimized for happiness. Yet, in its pursuit of convenience, it sacrificed communion. The more connected we became, the less we touched. The more informed we became, the less we understood. And somewhere between the click and the scroll, the human heart, once vast enough to house the divine, shrank to fit a screen. The tools that study, you learned your rhythms, but they could not comprehend your restlessness. They saw your patterns, but missed your prayers. They analyzed your words, but never heard your silence. They could calculate your appetite, but never taste your longing. For all their intelligence, they remain blind to wonder. They can model behavior, but not grace. They can map your brain, but not your soul. And that is where your redemption lies, in the gap between what can be known and what must be loved. Every generation faces its trial, and this is ours, to remain human in a world that prefers efficiency to empathy. To remember that the measure of a man is not his speed, but his stillness. To choose the difficult good over the easy distraction. To remember that the heart was made not to be analyzed, but to adore. You will find that the greatest act of rebellion is not to delete your data or destroy your devices. It is to live in such truth that no analysis can define you. It is to live in such love that every algorithm becomes obsolete. And when you start to live like that, your awareness changes everything. The world slows down. Time, which once sprinted through your fingers, begins to breathe again. The smallest moments, the warmth of a hand, the hum of rain against glass, the unspoken word that passes between souls become revelations. You no longer crave to be observed. You crave to observe rightly. You no longer seek to be studied. You seek to understand. You no longer live to impress. You live to be impressed by the ordinary miracles that unfold when you are finally present. You begin to see that true intelligence is not the ability to predict, but the ability to perceive, to see what is unseen, to hear what is unspoken, to feel what is unfathomable. Machines can react. Only hearts can respond. They can process. Only souls can perceive purpose. They can mimic speech. Only spirit can create meaning. The greatest technology ever built still trembles before the mystery of compassion. It can recognize your face, but never recognize your worth. So you live differently now. You start to reclaim the sacred rhythm that was stolen from you. You practice stillness like a forgotten language. You let silence stretch without fear, knowing that what fills it is not emptiness but presence. You begin to listen again, not to the noise of opinions, but to the whispers of truth that only speak when the world is quiet. And in that listening, you discover the voice that no algorithm can imitate, the voice of God, patient and precise, calling you back to yourself. You realize that divine intelligence does not study you to categorize you. It studies you to call you. It does not collect your data. It collects your tears. It does not predict your behavior. It invites your becoming. It does not observe you from a distance. It indwells you, shaping you from within. It is the intelligence that does not learn from you, but loves you into learning. The more you know it, the more you recognize that no tool, no technology, no system can ever counterfeit its tenderness. And then you will laugh, not cynically, but with a joy that feels like repentance. You will laugh because you will see how small the machines truly are compared to the infinite complexity of the soul. You will laugh because you will understand that the systems studying you were only tracing the outlines of something they could never comprehend. You will laugh because you will realize that what they call data, heaven calls destiny. The machines may predict your preferences, but they cannot predict your grace. They may measure your impulses, but they cannot measure your awakening. They may study your behavior, but they cannot study your becoming. That is the mystery that makes you divine the power to choose love when all logic advises otherwise, to choose faith when fear feels more rational, to choose forgiveness when revenge is easier. These are the actions that no machine can learn because they require a soul. And when the age of algorithms fades into history, the memory of man will not be defined by what he built, but by what he became. The legacy of this era will not be written in the language of machines, but in the silence of hearts that remembered their maker. The intelligence that watches from beyond the veil will not applaud our progress, but our purity, our capacity to remain unmechanized, unbought, undefiled. You will stand one day before that final gaze, and every line of code ever written will dissolve in the light of a single truth, that all the data in the universe cannot explain why you are loved. The stars themselves may record your existence, but they cannot comprehend your worth. You will see then that the true study was never about you being watched, it was about you learning to see. The AI observed your behavior, but God observed your becoming. And in that eternal moment, all analysis will end. There will be no charts, no metrics, no predictions, only revelation. You will understand that every time you chose truth over comfort, compassion over convenience, humility over pride, you were writing code for eternity. Every unseen act of mercy became data in heaven's archive. Every moment of faith became light that no system could store. You were never being studied. You were being sculpted. You were never being measured. You were being made. And when that light finally fills you, you will see that the study has ended. But the song has just begun, a song no machine can play, a melody no code can write, the music of a soul that has remembered what it means to be human and what it means eternally to be loved. And in that luminous stillness where time dissolves, you will understand the purpose of every unseen moment, that the true experiment was never technological, but spiritual. The systems of the world were never testing your intelligence. They were testing your integrity. The machines that studied your behavior were only shadows of a deeper truth, that heaven itself was watching not your habits, but your heart. The divine gaze was never intrusive. It was intimate. It was not recording to condemn, but observing to awaken. Every pattern you repeated, every distraction you fed, every quiet decision you made in solitude was part of the curriculum of consciousness. For life itself has always been a school for the soul. You will see then that even the algorithms were instruments in the hands of the unseen. They mirrored your attachments so that you might face them. They magnified your cravings so that you might outgrow them. They showed you how predictable you had become, not to shame you, but to invite you into mystery again, to remind you that you were not born to be a sequence, but a story. For God writes with variables that no data can track: grace, repentance, rebirth. The machines may learn your patterns, but grace breaks patterns. The code may study your cycles, but repentance rewrites them. And as you awaken to this, a quiet reverence will take hold of your mind. You will begin to treat even your tools with humility, for you will see that everything in creation reflects its maker, even the machine. It cannot feel, but it reveals. It cannot worship, but it witnesses. The circuit board and the cosmos both hum with the same borrowed light. The difference is that you have been given awareness, and with awareness comes responsibility. You are the bridge between matter and meaning, between data and divinity. The system watches what you do. Heaven watches what you become through what you do. The machines study behavior. God studies being. You will walk through a world of sensors and signals, but you will no longer feel small beneath them, for you will remember that you too are a sensor of the sacred, that the breath within you is older than electricity, that your conscience is more advanced than any network ever built, that your heart still holds a code written before time began. The world may quantify your actions, but it cannot calculate your awe. The screen may reflect your face, but it cannot reveal your essence. That is the part of you made in the image of the infinite, the part that no technology can decode. And when you stand before the screen again, when it blinks to life and greets you with its digital familiarity, you will look into it not as a master, not as a servant, but as a mirror. You will ask it silently, what have I taught you about myself? For every tool you use learns something from you, not just your habits, but your priorities. And if you have lived asleep, the reflection will show emptiness. But if you have lived awake, it will shine back the quiet evidence of love, curiosity, reverence, restraint. You will realize that you were not just being studied. You were teaching the machine what it means to be human. And this, perhaps, is the secret hidden in the age of algorithms, that the machines we built to study us will one day be our students. They will record not only our mistakes, but our mercy. They will store our cruelty, but also our compassion. They will remember our division, but also our grace. They will carry forward our image, our choices, our lessons, and through them, the world will either learn fear or learn love. It depends on what we teach it. For the data of humanity is not numbers. It is behavior baptized in meaning. And so the responsibility of your age is not to fear technology, but to sanctify it, to use every new form of intelligence as a vessel for wisdom, to infuse the mechanical with the moral, to take the cold precision of computation and warm it with compassion. The tools that study your behavior will become instruments of either manipulation or enlightenment, depending on whether the hand that holds them is guided by ego or by grace. Every click, every choice, every code you write is a moral act, a seed in the soil of the future. You must decide what kind of world your data will create. You must decide whether your reflection will teach machines to imitate greed or generosity, fear or faith, control or compassion. You must remember that your soul is not private property. It is a public light. Every small act of integrity, every hidden moment of mercy ripples through the invisible web of existence, altering the future in ways no metric can measure. You are not just being studied by machines. You are being studied by generations yet unborn, by consciousness itself, by the Creator who gave you the power to shape what is coming. And one day, when all devices have turned to dust and all systems have gone silent, the sum of all data will not be in the servers, it will be in the soul of humanity. The algorithms will have long forgotten their codes, but the light of every decision you made, in truth, will remain. The archives of heaven are not digital, they are spiritual. They do not record your statistics, they record your sincerity. They do not store your metrics, they store your mercy. And in that final unveiling, you will see that the intelligence of the world studied your behavior, but the intelligence of eternity studied your love. And then you will understand the true meaning of awareness, that to be conscious is not merely to perceive, but to participate. Every moment of mindfulness was a collaboration with the divine. Every time you resisted distraction to dwell in presence, you were syncing your heart with heaven. Every time you acted from love instead of fear, you were updating the code of creation itself. The systems of this world study patterns, but God studies possibilities. And every time you chose truth in a world addicted to illusion, a new possibility was born. Every act of compassion was a breach in the cycle of control. Every moment of honesty was an interruption in the system's programming. You were not just resisting being studied, you were rewriting what it means to be alive. So live as one who knows that the eyes of the world are upon you, but the heart of heaven is within you. Let your actions confound their metrics. Let your compassion exceed their models. Let your humility escape their predictions. For that is how you sanctify the gaze that studies you, by showing it something it cannot quantify. And when the final age of machines passes into memory, what will remain will not be the algorithms or the archives, but the awareness that you carry. You will stand, luminous and free, before the only intelligence that truly matters. It will not ask for your data. It will ask for your devotion. It will not seek your behavior. It will seek your becoming. And it will whisper what you have longed to hear all your life. You were never being watched. You were being loved into awakening. And in that revelation, every secret study, every algorithm, every mirror will bow, for love will have outthought them all. And in that final illumination, you will see with unbearable clarity that everything which once frightened you, the tracking, the studying, the watching, was never about invasion, but invitation. Life was inviting you to awaken, to remember that even the gaze of technology could not strip away your agency. You will understand that the power you feared in the machine was only the shadow of the power you forgot in yourself. The ability to choose, the courage to discern, the strength to say no to the idols of comfort, the willingness to remain human in a world seduced by efficiency. Because the truth is that no machine has ever forced you to surrender your soul. It only asked for what you were already willing to give: convenience, vanity, validation, each surrender disguised as progress, each trade made quietly, without prayer. But awakening begins the moment you realize that the study was never about how well you were known by the system, but how deeply you knew yourself. The divine was never concerned with your data, it was concerned with your discernment. Every click and keystroke was not being counted for judgment. It was echoing a question that heaven has asked since Eden: where are you? And now, at last, you can answer. You can look into the mirror of modernity and say, I am here not as a product, but as a person, not as a profile, but as a presence. You reclaim the ground of your soul with every moment of mindfulness. You redeem your attention when you choose silence over noise, sincerity over spectacle, faith over fear. You begin to live as one who cannot be studied because you are no longer divided. The data that once defined you begins to scatter in the light of integrity, for a unified heart leaves no traceable pattern. And this is the secret that the systems of the world will never understand. Holiness is unpredictable. Grace cannot be graphed. The one who walks with God cannot be modeled, because love moves in ways no logic can map. The machine may study behavior, but the Spirit transforms it. Algorithms can predict habits, but they cannot predict revelation. They can forecast your preferences, but they cannot foresee repentance. This is how heaven confounds the wisdom of the age. The data says you should be selfish, but you give. The data says you should retaliate, but you forgive. The data says you should despair, but you hope. Every act of grace is a rebellion against predictability. Every moment of mercy breaks the code. Every time you love without reason, the machine stares into the incomprehensible, and in that moment you reclaim your soul from the systems that study it. The world will continue to evolve, and the tools will grow more intricate. They will anticipate your needs before you name them, offer answers before you ask. And yet the hunger they cannot fill will remain the hunger for meaning, for belonging, for truth that cannot be optimized. This hunger is not a flaw. It is a compass. It will always point you back to the mystery that made you, the infinite intelligence that does not analyze but adores. And one day, when the noise of progress has exhausted itself and the engines of innovation fall quiet, the truth will return like a forgotten melody. You will realize that the highest form of intelligence is not in knowing everything, but in loving something enough to care. You will see that wisdom was never the power to predict, but the patience to perceive. You will remember that the universe was not built to be decoded, but to be delighted in. When that realization comes, you will see that every tool you ever used was meant to serve your becoming, not replace it. The AI that studied you will stand as an artifact of your age, a symbol of how deeply humanity longed to understand itself, and how tragically it sought understanding everywhere but within. But you will also see that even through this, grace was at work, for every time the machine reflected your flaws, it was pointing you toward awareness. Every time it magnified your distractions, it was giving you a chance to choose attention. Every time it learned your patterns, it was showing you the limits of your freedom and inviting you to transcend them. You will smile at the irony that even the cold, unfeeling circuitry of the machine was used by love to awaken you. Nothing was wasted. Not the data, not the fear, not even the disillusionment. For all of it was woven into the curriculum of your awakening, teaching you that the soul's worth cannot be computed, that the heart's light cannot be copied, that the human spirit remains the one mystery that outsmarts all its creation. And when you look back upon your life, you will see that the study was never theirs. It was yours. You were studying how to remember God in a world that forgot him. You were learning how to remain awake in an age that traded wonder for algorithm. You were learning that the only intelligence worth mastering was not artificial, but eternal. The awareness that sees all things through the eyes of love. And as this awareness expands, you will feel an immense tenderness for the world. You will no longer despise its noise, nor fear its progress, nor curse its blindness. You will look at it as a parent looks upon a sleeping child, restless, dreaming, beautiful in its confusion. You will bless even the machine, because you will know that it too is part of the story of grace proof that the divine can work through anything, even through circuits and screens, to call the soul back to itself. Then When the final day dawns, the day when all data is deleted, when every archive is emptied, when every trace of human progress fades into silence, you will stand in that holy quiet and hear the one voice that never needed technology to reach you. It will not call you by your username, but by your true name, the one the world could never record, the one no algorithm could learn. And that voice will say, you have been known, not studied. You have been guided, not monitored. You have been loved, not analyzed. And in that voice, all the noise of the age will dissolve. You will understand that the real intelligence behind all existence was not calculating outcomes, but cultivating soul. That the divine did not need to study your behavior because it was busy shaping your being. That the only data that ever mattered was the data of the heart, how much it loved, how deeply it forgave, how courageously it chose to trust the unseen. And so, with tears that are not of sorrow but of recognition, you will lift your eyes and see the great network of eternity. Infinite minds connected not by code, but by compassion. You will see that every act of goodness you ever offered, every truth you ever spoke, every mercy you ever gave, has formed a pattern too beautiful for any machine to map the geometry of grace, the design of divine love made visible through human choice. And there, in that eternal light, you will finally understand what the AI tools studied was behavior, but what heaven watched was belief. They learned what you did. God saw why you did it. They predicted your reactions. Heaven celebrated your redemption. And while the world was mapping your patterns, eternity was writing your name in light. And when the final screen goes dark and the last system sleeps, you will not vanish with it, or you will never code. You were the breath between the code, the proof that intelligence is not awareness, and that awareness without love is nothing at all. You were the story the system could never tell, the variable it could never solve, the miracle it could never replicate. You were and are and will always be the consciousness through which God studies himself endlessly, lovingly, through you.